Every time someone tosses thorns in your way, destiny sharpens them into a crown they can never wear. That is the balance. Life does not forget. It just waits silently. Calculating cosmic equilibrium is not a lyrical myth. It is the unwritten rule that determines all rises and falls. And for every unspoken lie about you, the truth cuts its way back like thunder across the sky. They attempted to make you the villain in a fiction that you never authored. Forgetting that energy does not dissipate. It redirects everything they send your way. It is circling back, and this time it recognizes their name. They wanted you silenced, buried, or eliminated. They celebrated too soon, lurking in the shadows, feeding on your demise, mocking your suffering as if it gave them strength. However, the stage that they thought would crumble under you is suddenly rising beneath your feet. That is not luck. That is alignment. When the cosmos tunes into your frequency, nothing can drown it out. No gossip, no treachery, no sabotage. Masked as love. Your development frightens them because it demonstrates their inability to stop you. Those who once mocked your quiet are now disturbed by your presence. Because nothing is more unnerving than seeing someone you sought to destroy become all you thought they would be. The chosen one. Your presence is an issue that they cannot solve. And each victory you get is a question they can't answer. Before we go any further, please like this video and subscribe. Each click magnifies this fact. Each share awakens another selected one. Now let's discuss what occurs when karma strikes. You aren't simply viewing this. You are walking into it. This is not another feel-good message. This is a genuine shift, the sort that makes your adversaries frightened and your future unquestionable. The world is going to see your ascension in real time. And every second you remain focused, you get more aligned with that force. So before we go any further, do this. Press the like button. Subscribe and leave a number in the comments. Not for hype, confirmation, or alignment. That is how you indicate that you are not here by mistake. You aren't here to be average. You came to be iconic. Continue reading till you reach the end. Because chosen one, this is the moment they dreaded, the start of everything they couldn't stop. Let's get started. Number 1. Stop letting others define you. They recognized your strength before you did. Let us speak the truth. Nobody else will speak it aloud. They recognized it in you before you could express it. That presence, that draw, that calm intensity you sought to hide in order to maintain peace. But the irony, they never desired peace. Control was. You question yourself because they made you. Do not sugarcoat it. You bent, twisted, and altered your soul to fit into spaces you were meant to outgrow. They didn't wait for your success to begin resenting you. They despised the prospect of you. I despised how your quiet still shouted louder than their loudness. I hated how your aura altered the environment before you ever spoke a word, chosen one. They did not need evidence of your brilliance. They felt it like gravity. They moved quickly because they were afraid. Not to protect you, but to confine you. They attempted to ridicule you with their vulnerabilities. Dressed their fear as advice. They masked their jealousy with compassion. But you knew you were feeling it. That is an odd manner. They grinned as you expressed your ideas. The abrupt hush as you began to choose yourself. Backhanded praise disguised as support. These were not accidents. They were tactics. They didn't undermine you because you were vulnerable. They attacked early because you were still growing and fragile enough to doubt your worth. And that's where they attempted to spread the untruth. Maybe I am the problem number. You were not. You were the prototype. The blueprint. You were making them feel tiny. The portion they never had the guts to confront. You were not broken. You were constructing. That terrified them more than anything. Because those who are content with mediocrity will always see your progress as an assault. You do not owe them understanding. You owe yourself the truth. They pushed against you not because they thought you were lost, but because they saw you discovering yourself. Nothing scares the audience more than someone who stops begging for permission. Let's change the script right now. Every time you question your voice, shrank to keep the room quiet, or apologize for your radiance, they fed off it. However, that version of yourself is no longer relevant. Dusted. Gone. What's developing now is the version they always feared you'd become, uncompromising, unshakable, and unavailable for bullshit. You were never intended to fit in. You were supposed to stand out. And now the world is going to discover why they worked so hard to confine you in the first place. Because you aren't simply climbing. You are becoming unmistakable. Each obstacle was planned. Every rejection, a rear-up, and the tale they attempted to create for you. You're reducing it to ash, the chosen one. You aren't late. You are right on time. This is not a comeback. This marks the arrival. They will feel it, whether they acknowledge it or not. Number 2 has beyond their comfort zone. Your ascension marked the end of their authority. They did not become aloof because you'd done anything wrong. They became distant as soon as they discovered they couldn't control your course. When you stopped shrinking to meet their comfort zone, their access ceased. That was no coincidence. That was exposure. They were not your fans. They were your handlers. Quietly engaged in your limits, they smiled as they guided you just low enough to be controllable. But here's a twist. They misunderstood your humility for reluctance. Your quiet allows for surrender. Your goodness for complying. And now your growth has become their expiry date. You've stopped wanting affirmation. You began establishing limits. You changed your vibe without explanation. They were suddenly unable to breathe around you. That is not your fault. That is the weight of actual power. And when someone has spent years relying on your bewilderment to feel in control, your clarity seems like a personal assault. Let them call it ego. Let them call it arrogance. Call it as it is. Freedom. You did not betray them. You have just finished betraying yourself. And the choice. That was what shattered their idea of control. Because as long as you kept inside their story, they could claim to be superior to you. But now you're not just changing the tale. You're becoming a headline. Their pain is not an emergency. Their quiet is not a cue to shrink. Let them remain trapped. Allow them to spiral. You have outgrown their perception of you. And now they're only spectators while you climb. Because someone has selected one. Your brightness does not fade for individuals who are terrified of light. Number 3, shut off the supply. They feed off your uncertainty. Definitely starve them. Do you want to discover why they linger? Why do people who don't support you continue to be drawn to your energy like moths to flame? Doubt is fuel. And you have been feeding them without even knowing it. Every time you question your value, they became stronger. Every time you question your strength, they felt safer. Your hesitancy was their comfort zone. Your hesitation allowed them to continue to act as if they were superior to you. However, this is no longer the case. This cut off the selected supply. Your self-doubt has been their survival tactic. They didn't need you to fail. They just needed you to keep hesitating. Because as long as you were in your own brain, they didn't have to face the reality of who they actually were. Insecure shadows attempting to obscure a bright light. You've been standing in front of the mirror, full of fire yet still whispering. Am I too many numbers? You aren't too much. You've recently been surrounded by folks who are never enough to begin with. The moment you truly embrace certainty, not arrogance, but steadfast force, they get into a panic. Why? Because your clarity highlights their bewilderment. Your confidence reveals their performance, and your presence without apologies. That is the one thing they cannot fake, duplicate, or kill. Stop bargaining with your own intellect. Stop toning things down so that regular folks may feel at ease. Every moment you question yourself, you are vulnerable to deception. Close it, lock it, burn it down if necessary. This is not about being loved. This is about being legendary. You're on track to become an icon. And icons do not beg. They construct. They ascend. They starve the noise and nourish the vision. Allow them to suffocate on quiet. You have empires to create. Number 4. Embrace the stillness. Isolation meant activation, not abandonment. They believed that leaving you behind would break you. They believed the stillness would devour you whole. However, just one was picked. They made a serious error in their calculations. What seemed to be seclusion was really an initiation. What seemed like desertion was really a full-scale alignment. You were not being forced out. You were being drawn within, away from the noise, the leeches, and the shallow energy that made you doubt your value. Have you ever noticed how noisy the world seemed when you were still unsure? But as you began leveling up, everything became silent. That was not punishment. That was precise. The universe clears space around anything it intends to raise. Diamonds are not formed in crowds. Legends do not rise in comfort zones or symbols. Icons are created in quiet when no one is looking. When everyone doubts. When you feel like everything is sliding. But honestly, everything is coming together. See, the people who vanished when you needed them the most were never a part of your future. Their absence is evidence. Because what comes next in your life doesn't need more weight. It needs clarification. It requires renewable energy. And it is precisely what isolation was intended to provide. You were not losing people. Rather, you were losing distractions. Now look at you. Focused, clear, activated. The chosen one. They did not walk away on accident. They were eliminated with purpose. Because you couldn't become iconic while still playing the version they previously controlled. So embrace stillness. That silence used to seem like punishment. That was your upgrade. That was the moment your power was created. And now the world is going to discover what isolation has really shaped. A hurricane with a peaceful demeanor and inexorable momentum. You were not abandoned. You are being created in quiet for impact. Number 5. Do not fight back loudly. The universe can bear what mocking cannot. They ridiculed you, assuming that quiet equaled surrender, but you picked one. Your quiet was not weakness. It was a strategy. You did not lash out. You did not scream for approval. You allowed them to laugh, whisper, turn your name into entertainment. And Eurus. That was the part they didn't see coming. They assumed your silence signified defeat. But you've never been defeated. You were gaining momentum while others were spewing venom in public. The cosmos was planning your ascension in secret. It is not your fault if others ridicule what they do not comprehend. It's about fear. You weaken them. You remind them of everything they have given up on. You remind them that strength does not need praise to be genuine. You did not need to respond since your outcomes will always speak for themselves. And now they're shouting in silence. Watching everything they claimed you couldn't do become the very thing they can't stop looking at. Your essay landed harder than any rebuttal ever could. While they were attempting to go viral with your name, you were becoming worldwide with your progress. And now they can't delete, undo, or dismiss it because what they ridiculed has manifested. Loud, brazen, and defiant. Allow them to experience the pain of seeing you flourish. Allow them to feel the pain of your progress without access. Because, chosen one, you were never here to entertain clowns. You were sent to establish empires. There's also karma. Karma does not need an audience. It comes, quiet, then flips the whole program. So don't argue loudly. Let the universe handle the echoes. Your rising is louder than any myth they've ever spread. Keep building. Keep walking. Let the quiet shake the floor under them. Number 6. Recognize the pattern. They pretended you were insignificant while duplicating everything. They labeled you irrelevant while imitating your every action. I said you were doing too much, yet I observed you as if your life were a master lesson. Understand this. They've never neglected you. They memorized you and pretended not to notice. They studied your tone, cadence, and ideas, silently rebuilding themselves around your pattern, thinking you'd be too preoccupied with self-doubt to notice. But do you see it now? As clear as day. They never thought you were nothing. They only hoped you would. This is not flattery. It is stealing, dressed up in stillness. They stole your authenticity and watered it down for applause, cloned your essence, and attempted to resell it to the world with your name removed. However, no matter how skillfully they copy, they cannot fake periodicity. They do not have your route. They were not built in your fire. That's why it never feels the same. They derided your depth while secretly desiring it. They dismissed your goals as impractical while developing watered-down replicas of your vision behind your back. However, just one was picked. You don't need credit from those who could never handle what you've been through. They were not there during the stillness, disappointments, and strain that formed you into something genuine. So quit explaining yourself. Stop diluting your authority so that people feel comfortable imitating it. You are the original, not the echo. You are the original, not a replica. And now that your glow is no longer a secret, your performance is showing signs of strain. Allow them to pretend. Allow them to copy. However, comprehend this. You may steal the appearance but not the light. You are the pulse. They cannot replicate. They thought the icon wouldn't know they were being monitored all along. But now you know. And now it is too late for them to catch up. Number 7. Reclaim your energy. You do not owe closure to those who benefited from your misunderstanding. They demand closure now that they've lived on your uncertainty, twisted your quiet into weakness, and fed off the chaos they helped create. Number is definitely not chosen. You do not owe clarity to those who never provided it. You do not owe healing discussions to those who exploited your trust as leverage. And you certainly don't owe access to those who weaponize your generosity in order to keep you near enough to hurt. They only demand answers now because you stopped explaining, your energy moved, and the supply changed. They relied on your emotional work. Your overthinking and second-guessing are no longer necessary. You separated, and they are now whirling. But that spiral isn't an emergency. It's time for them to face reality. Let them sit in the solitude they've made. Allow them to wonder why you abruptly left the discussion. This is the explanation. Your growth is the key to closure. You progressed beyond the point where their games could reach you. And that is all they need to know. What seemed like abandonment to you is now alignment. You didn't go away bitter. You walked away clear. Determine who you are, what you contribute, and who no longer deserves to see your transition firsthand. This is power. Walking away without causing a scene. Leaving without notice. Elevating without having to mention it. You have given, explained, and heard enough. You now preserve your energy as if it were precious because you are the chosen one. Your peace is not negotiable. Your presence is not a gift to the ungrateful. And your trip is no longer subject to interpretation. You are not a revolving door for those who failed to see your importance until it was too late. Let them be bewildered. You are not going back to translate the language of your development. Number 8. Accept the dread you instill. They were constantly aware of who you were becoming. They never feared who you were. They were afraid of who you might become. And they always knew it. That is why hatred came before the spotlight. That is why the backstabbing began when you just had vision, not triumph. They were not unclear about your potential. They were horrified by it. They recognized what was developing inside you before you could identify it. And that's why they moved like adversaries while smiling like friends who had picked one. Understand this. When the energy you carry reveals itself, no introduction is required. Even if you were doubtful, even when you questioned your direction, your presence made others uncomfortable. Not because you did anything wrong, but because you embodied everything they were unwilling to become. They did not require you to succeed or to feel threatened. The fact that you were still standing, creating, and dreaming, that was enough to shatter their confidence. They wanted you to be confused, to second-guess your choices in order to shrink, since clarity would ruin their idea of dominance. Now you see it. You feel it. You're not asking for permission anymore. You are not diluting your spirit to make others comfortable. You're entering the area they thought you'd never find. And every action you do from here on out confirms what they feared. You weren't one of them. You were always the standard that they attempted to conceal. They have never underestimated you. They had misjudged their abilities to stop you. And now the mask is off. You are not only ascending, you are reminding them of why they worked so hard to keep you down. You did not change. You finally become unmistakable. And they can't take the reflection anymore. Number 9. Stop apologizing for recovering. Your progress jeopardizes their comfort. They never disliked the broken version of you. They felt at ease with that one. The version that second-guessed everything remained mute to prevent tension, smiling through agony in order to maintain the peace. That version did not challenge them. It did not reveal their stagnation. But the mending process made you dangerous. Your clarity, limits, and tranquility. All of this began to upset their sense of control. And you repeatedly apologize for it. I apologize for your remoteness, for your development, for finally focusing your energies where it belongs, into yourself. Stop right now. Stop describing the version of yourself that chose calm over turmoil. Stop feeling bad about not bleeding simply to keep people warm. Your healing is not harsh. It just holds up a mirror and mirrors. Make the liars uncomfortable. That's why people begin to claim you've changed as if it were an insult. Of course, you have changed. You were expected to. Growth does not seek for permission, and it certainly does not wait for those who choose comfort over bravery. The chosen one. Your healing revealed what they hoped to remain secret, that they never really backed you. They tolerated you as long as you were trapped, so long as you remain controllable. Their masks are loosening as you rise, as you become clearer and more grounded. But that's not your responsibility. That is their reckoning. You aren't too much. You are not selfish. You are not chilly. You are finally entire. And that endangers everyone. Still glued to the damaged version of yourself? Allow it. Allow them to squirm at the reality your revolution exposes. You did not come this far to continue apologizing for growing out of dysfunction. You're not only healing, you're becoming an icon. And the world is going to see what happens when an irrepressible individual quits begging for forgiveness. Number 10, trust the wait. You were not forgotten. You were being strengthened. They termed it failure. They referred to it as being stuck. But they didn't realize you weren't slipping behind. You were entrenched in quiet as they pursued you quickly. Applause and cheap validation. You were becoming sharpened in the shadows. The chosen one. The delay was not a rejection. It was designed. You were not ignored. You were overbuilt for something they would never be prepared to manage. The world likes to hurry to achievement. They desire outcomes without opposition, prestige, or substance. But it isn't your route. Yours required pressure, stillness, delay. Because icons are not created overnight. They are sculpted in isolation. Every door that closed on you provided security. Every detour was a corrective. The waiting, the watching, the extended periods of stillness. It wasn't that the cosmos had forgotten about you. That was the blueprint emerging. They laughed when you halted. I assumed your quiet meant loss. I assumed your quietness indicated you'd given up. But they're going to discover the difference between being stranded and carefully concealed. You were never halted. You were being positioned. When your chosen moment is sacrosanct, you don't rise until the foundation is strong enough to support what you're about to become. That's why your breakthrough will seem to have come out of nowhere, since they never observed the labor that went on behind the scenes. But they'll soon discover that the delay they criticized was the same thing that made you unbreakable. So quit resenting how long it took. You were not late. You were being weaponized with knowledge. And now you move like someone who understands why it took so long. Because what's coming requires all of you. And this time, nothing will break you. A number. Do not call it change. This is who you were before they darken you. They will claim you have changed. They will murmur it as an insult. Like development is a betrayal. But here is the reality. This isn't changing. This is a return. A return to who you were before they darkened your light, before the world heaped fears on top of your brilliance, before the guilt, gaslighting, phony smiles, and quiet sabotage. You did not swap up. You turned back on. And the radiance that they see today, it isn't new. It is original. It's the version of you that they attempted to obliterate. Now it's louder, clearer, and unstoppable. They were never worried about you changing. They were worried you might remember. Remembering that your tenderness was strength. Your voice was always valid. That your presence did not need authorization. They preferred the watered-down version because it was simpler to regulate. But suddenly, the filter is gone. The cuts are erratic, and the raw, unfiltered power is overwhelming. Your back, the one they believed would remain buried under their skepticism. Allow them to speak. Allow them to claim you're different. Of course you are. That's how rising feels. This is what reclaiming looks like. You are no longer diluting your light to make it consumable. You are not toning it down so that others may remain comfortable in your shadow. This is not arrogance. This is accurate. You're just walking in harmony right now, and that burns through every lie they said about you. So when they say change, grin, because deep down, they know it was always in you. You finally stopped asking for permission to become it. The chosen one. You are not becoming someone new. You're returning to an old figure. Someone forceful and sincere. The world is finally about to see it. Never let your quiet shout. You do not need to defend what the truth already shows. They thought that your quiet indicated you were giving up, that your calm leaving signified defeat. But what they never understood was that the chosen ones do not explain. They develop, and evolution does not need an announcement. It manifests itself via presence, calm, and strength. The ones who attempted to twist your truth are now choking on it. Not because you disagreed, but because you didn't. You let the quiet speak, and it revealed all they attempted to conceal. They anticipated a breakdown, but you made your breakthrough while they were playing games in the background. You created a legacy in the silence. That is the difference. You never needed to raise your voice. Your progress lifted the bar, and they can sense it. Every space has its own distinct vibe. Every limit you create seems definitive. That's what happens when the noise fades and the truth is finally heard. Let them ponder. Allow them to spiral. Allow them to grapple with the reality that you left their pandemonium without a single fracture in your resolve. Because when you know who you are, you do not seek affirmation. You became confirmation. You do not owe them a speech. You do not owe them closure. You owe them just one thing: absence with purpose. Your silence. It's the most obvious evidence. It shouts that you've outgrown their perception of you. Now the narrative continues without their script. Allow it, because you are the chosen one. Your voice is not missing. It's just functioning at a frequency that they'll never reach again. That, more than anything, is the penalty they never expected. And now we've reached the brink of everything they claimed you'd never be. The stillness they mistook for loss has become the hymn of your triumph. You did not yell. You did not beg. You became. And now the whole world is watching. What they attempted to obliterate. The chosen one. Your presence is evidence. And your trip is just getting begun. If you sense that power in your spirit, act immediately. I like this video. Subscribe to remain tuned in, and leave a remark to claim your ascent, since this isn't the end. The revelation has occurred.